Normally, the skirl of the bagpipes is enough to strike pride into the heart of every Scot. But a new report from the National Piping Centre reveals a darker side to the piping and drumming community. The Women in Piping and Drumming survey reveals many women and girls in the community have experienced sexism, inappropriate behaviour, and even senior figures in the bagpipe world using their influence to try and take advantage of them. Well, Naomi Pohl is General Secretary of the Musicians' Union. Good morning to you, Naomi. Does any of this surprise you?
Morning. Well, unfortunately, we've run studies ourselves and we've seen these kinds of statistics replicated across music. This is a problem that the music industry needs to face up to, and we need change within the industry, and we need to make sure that freelancers are better protected, because I think one of the issues we have in music is most people are freelance, so they've got less rights and it's more difficult for them to raise a complaint. But I think for me the most kind of scary element of this is the talk about senior figures, because I think that it does ring true, unfortunately, that people in a position of power in music, they've got the power to make or break careers. They're high profile, institutions kind of platform them and they take advantage.
So I wonder, when surveys like this come out, do you fear that sometimes there's an under-reporting, that people just simply are too scared to even report issues and come forward?
We know that people don't report, unfortunately. With surveys that we've run, the majority of people who experience sexual harassment and sexism and abuse in the industry don't report it. And the reason they don't is because they're afraid of the repercussions. They're afraid that if they speak out, they won't be booked again. Work as a freelance musician is very precarious. And with piping, we can see from this study that it's a very male-dominated environment, so it's incredibly difficult for women to speak out. But the way they can do it is collectively. So it's important to have statistics like this because they raise the issues without individual people necessarily needing to come forward.
And how do we change this? Because one of the issues, and you reflected on there, it's a very male-dominated environment. But how do you change that?
Well, I think the Piping Centre are actually running initiatives where they're going to be raising the profile of women. And also, I think in their press release, they talk about how important it is for women to actually teach the art as well. Because I think one of the women who's kind of spoken out in support of these statistics has said that she's never had a female teacher. So I think some of this starts at music education level. We can't be in a position where we have gendered instruments, where certain instruments are only taught by men. It should be the case that young women can be taught by women and can go into an industry where there are women in positions of power booking other women as well. You know, so we need to see better representation of women, and we need to make sure that there are safe places for people to go to report confidentially, and that the industry will have a zero tolerance approach to sexism and sexual harassment. And I do think that change is happening, which is fantastic. I think studies like this raise awareness of the issue, and it does prompt the industry to change. But unfortunately, change is quite slow, and this problem is urgent.
Another interesting factor that comes through in this report is the contribution of alcohol in the creation of uncomfortable environments. Do you recognise that?
Absolutely, yeah. Again, I think with the music industry as a whole, alcohol and drugs being available in environments is certainly a contributing factor. When you're working in an office environment, the idea that somebody would have a few drinks before coming to work is totally alien. That would be a disciplinary matter. But of course, when you're working in music, a lot of the time you're working at evening events, it's antisocial hours. It's a sociable environment. It's very informal. Alcohol is readily available, and it can lead to things like audience members harassing performers, as well as the problems happening within music itself.
So what's your advice to women and girls in the industry who are affected by this? As you say, it's very difficult to come forward. It's a very precarious line of work. What should people do?
Apart from what women and girls should do themselves, I think we need to see changes in the law to make sure that freelancers have better protections. There is going to be a new independent standards authority. It's called CISA. It's the Creative Industries Independent Standards Authority, which is being set up and it's going to be UK wide. It's going to be somewhere that people can go to report, and there'll actually be independent investigations into issues, which is really important to have that. Okay. The Musicians Union runs a safe space service, so we've got a place where people can report to us as well, and we will give advice and we'll signpost support. But having an independent authority who can actually investigate is really important.
Okay, Naomi, thank you very much indeed for that. Naomi Pohl there, General Secretary of the Musicians Union.